How you
What's
do?
up, guys?
How you doing, folks?
We're gonna really work on our intro timing.
Yeah, I know. I it's because I've been letting you handle the intros, so now I'm like kind of.
Oh, we're switching the gear.
Yeah, because now I'm more confident. But this episode we actually talked about MBTI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we give a little bit. We kind of go all over the place, though. I don't even know how to sum it up.
Yeah, I think we're kind of summarizing weeks of conversations that we've had on MBTI.
Yeah, just giving a little bit more of a.
Let me touch on the
more knowledge.
Yeah, let me touch on the three pillars that I had coming in. One is almost like a personality transition in your early 20s. I kind of expanded on that. Something that's true for both of us and something we've seen in general. And then the second one was I kind of wanted to, I guess, divulge into more creative type of personalities. Like if there's something, like if any types, for instance, which is extrovert intuition, coupled with introverted sensing, does that lend more to a certain creative mindset? I don't know. And then the other one was also we talked about balance in the or complementarity.
Yeah.
In
the function, the cognitive function
functions.
stack. Yeah.
And then we kind of like talk about our own experiences as NTPs.
Yeah.
And then so pretty much and then we kind of get into a little bit of a movie that we saw recently and kind of analyzing the MBTI dynamic in that.
Yeah.
So
that's a pretty good summary.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
So there you go, guys. Stay tuned.
Cool. Bam. Classic. Welcome to Eigenbros classic episode. Yeah, where we return to form. Specifically talking about MBTI, mostly off the cuff. Mostly ruminating.
What we do best.
Yeah.
No train of thought.
No train of thought. No, but me and Terence actually have these conversations off screen a lot of the time. But we feel like maybe this is worth sharing for the MBTI people out there that have fun, talking about MBTI, which is, for those of you out there, it's a nice, good enough approximation, I think, for or a decent approximation of people's personalities in some way.
You can learn something for sure from MBTI, I believe.
Yeah.
And it seems, and Juan, you know this. I was very invested in personality typing tests for a good chunk of my life when I was younger, and I still kind of am off and on a little bit.
Me too.
All MBTI, but I've gone through pretty much all of the personality typing tests that are out there that are available. So, an MBTI seems to be the best one that I've discovered.
Yeah, and
despite what people may say about Big Five, I mean, I know it's supposed to be the best one, but relax.
So Big Five is another one. I kind of want to make this video as a standalone so that people can, or have this video that can stand on its own for people that are just coming in and watching us.
Sounds good.
So MBTI, Myers-Briggs, to gentle women, I believe.
Yes, you're right.
Were they scientists?
Yeah. I don't know if they were. I think they got into this game because of World War II or World War I or something, and they basically adopted Jung's system. I guess it might have been popular at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was older or not, but it was somehow relevant in their minds at that time.
Yeah.
And they used that to be able to sort women into factory jobs because the husbands all went on to war, so the women were all stuck at home trying to figure out what the hell they can do to help out the war, by making either bullets or, just some kind of factory job because the husbands now were they're all vacant.
Yeah.
All vacant positions back home. So, they invented this system, this Myers-Briggs type indicator to sort those women into jobs they believed would best serve their interests. And that was the conception.
That makes me think, like, how there's a subgroup of people online that say all men must die, like kill all men kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's a good way. That's a good. I think there's a certain population of feminists that might be like, all men suck. So maybe those feminists should like make another world war. You know what I'm saying? Like, make it happen so that
right. Then they can see how much they want us back.
Well, no, just like that's how you kill all men. Sign them up for a draft, and then
and then be like, oh, maybe men didn't suck that much. They did all the shitty jobs that we don't want to do.
Yeah, who wants to become a septic tank?
Exactly.
Freaking
get them gloves on, ladies.
literally knee deep in shit. So
Right.
yeah, those are not nice jobs to have. But anyway, yeah, they developed a system to try to have people that would be happy doing certain jobs, or maybe categorize them as job placement kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of something you see to this day with MBTI, like corporations. And, you know, I don't know how much of our audience is like people in school still versus people who have worked, you know, in the corporate world or in the industry, I guess.
Yeah.
But MBTI is sometimes used in those environments. I'm not a big proponent of that because then I think it lends itself to abuse. Because, you know, one, people don't ever type themselves right the first time. Like, it's
very true.
Shitty typing all around. It's a self-typing examination.
Yeah, you've put me on this wave because I used to tell people to go take the test, and now I'm just like, don't take the test.
Or if you take the test, take it 9 more times on different days.
Yeah, take an average, but for the most part, it's I rather have somebody who knows MBTI type them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then that could be hairy too, right? Because then now you have a person who you have to rely on their objectivity and their knowledge of the test enough, where it's pretty much all in their hands. The ideal way would be like the Dave Superpowers method of you have multiple people objectively type. So like, let's say you have like 5 people independently in rooms separate from each other, all type one person, and if they all if there's a consensus on that general type, then that's what your type most likely is.
Yeah. But that would require a team of MBTI professionals.
Yeah, exactly. Which I don't even know if that exists, really.
It's a niche. It's mostly a hobby. If you go to Reddit, for those of you, actually, most of you folks are probably from Reddit or probably stumble upon this from some YouTube algorithm, more than likely.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what our audience is. They could be from Twitter as well.
Yeah, but like MBTI folks, like anytime I go to MBTI, I go to YouTube. I'm like, okay, let's see this type. Yeah. There's a couple interesting people out there, but for the record, you're right now you're hearing a discussion about MBTI from 2 NTPs, ENTP, INTP,
NT Master Race, as they like to say.
I don't ascribe any sort of.
I'm just teasing, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, you know how when you first figure out your type, especially NTs, they get all cocksure. Oh, I'm a genius among men.
Yeah, we're the best.
Yeah, we're the best, especially INTJs.
Oh, INTJs,
those motherfuckers,
100%.
man.
Oh, I like INTJs.
I like
the mature.
I'm joking.
I like the mature ones. Shout out to y'all. But I'm an INTP. Terence is an ENTP. You might not know this just from like the fact that we had this discussion where that I kind of wanted to talk about, which was or elucidate more on the podcast, but it was it had to do with your personality going through almost like a phase transition. You go from your lead function to your secondary function in line, which usually for me, my whole life growing up in my adolescence I was very introverted. A little bit extroverted depending on who you talk to. Mostly amongst my inner circle, I was very like outgoing and stuff. But for the most part, I presented myself in a very introverted manner, you know. But now that I'm a little bit older, I've come out of my shell. And you see some people that they glow up. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
introverts, yes.
Yeah, they glow up. But I think that glow up, quote unquote, is just your phase transition to your secondary function more than likely. That typically manifests itself in some extroverted function.
Yes. I subscribe. This is where I disagree with the Dave Superpowers method, which is I love Dave Superpowers and I love Shannon and I love their methods they use for the objective typing personality. But I do not agree with their ideology that you could have 2 functions of the same attitude side by side within your stack. So, for example, what that means is, like, let's say for Juan's case, Juan is an INTP, so the 2 primary functions he would use would be introverted thinking first and then extroverted intuition second. I agree with the ordering as in being an alternation of your attitudes. So the attitude would being introverted or extroverted for those functions. So the perceiving function being thinking, the attitude being introverted. And then Juan's judging function. And then his perceiving function would be intuition, his attitude would be extroverted. With Dave's superpower system, they allow you to have 2 attitudes that are the same, which would be like 2 introverted functions in the same row. So let's say like if you had TI, SI. But to me, that doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah. And I've been through a TISI loop, and that's just horrific.
Yeah, to me that sounds like a caustic or a bad thing. And of course, I know people online are obsessed with looping. I cannot stand it. I don't even like to talk about looping because that's one of the first things that any newbie MBTI person that kind of gets in the system latches onto is fucking looping, and I hate it. Just stop talking about looping. Learn the normal system first, okay?
Yeah, there's a reason. I think there's a reason why the logical stack flows. And it might do with complementarity with like balancing or the way certain functions complement each other, especially TINE, but that's only because I'm familiar with it. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to highlight this point because I thought it was kind of interesting because I've seen it with my other friends. Like I have a couple INFP friends who have this same, who showed the same feature at the same time as I did, at the same age as I did, where they were very introverted growing up in their adolescence, and then coming out of college, more than likely, well, they're in their function and their stack, they're also secondary NE.
Right. So an INFP would be a primary FI and then secondary NE.
Yeah. So we literally came upon this. We had the same mindset almost going into in our early 20s, just coming out of it and being like, wow, man, we need to go out there, man. We need to like have cool experiences, man. We need to like see new things, like do stuff like that, and just expand our breadth of knowledge and thought and stuff like that. And yeah, and it was just interesting I recently came to this epiphany because me and Terence were discussing it. He was discussing, Terence is trying to build a more dynamical model for MBTI in some sense.
Well,
right?
I don't know if I want to say dynamical, but I'm trying to just build a more robust model, at least, or at least I'm trying to just add to the I'm adding from my anecdotal experience, because almost all psychology is anecdotal anyway. I mean I don't want to shit on you if you're a psychologist, but like I just want to make things more clear. I don't like a lot of the things that happen in the MBTI community because it's just so much of just like stereotypical fuzziness. Like there's not very really well-defined things. Like, for example, one of them being like when people talk about sensing, they always say like, they think of, when you think of sensing functions, they think of you don't have 5 senses unless you're talking about your sensing function. The 5 senses are independent from sensing functions. So whether or not you have a sensing function, let's just pretend you're a complete black box, you're going to have your 5 senses. The sensing part of sensing just simply means like, what are you? So let's say if you have your sensing function is SE, extroverted sensing.
Let's look at the extremes. Lead SC. What do they look like?
Yes,
stereotypically.
So lead SCs are people who are like the action-oriented guys, like adrenaline junkies. Let's say like the Steve-O's. You know, that's like an extreme example, right? So sensing extroverted is really concerned about like heightened sensory experience, and that means like, you know, like bright colors, or you know, they like the music that's really rhythmic music. They like the adrenaline rush of like physical activities. They're really precise with their movements, like the Conor McGregors out there. So like that would be examples of like SE type stuff. But that doesn't mean if you're a person who's like, let's say, inferior sensing, extroverted sensation, which would be like the INFJs or INTJs, that doesn't mean that you don't have senses, or like it doesn't mean that it means that you are just weak in using that, or weak in perceiving how to do those kind of extroverted sensing activities.
It's still in your stack.
Yeah, and the thing is, let's pretend you had no sensing function. You would still have your 5 senses. Like you still have taste, touch, smell, all that stuff. You have it. It's just that sensing is like the perceiving sensing function is saying, what are you drawn to? So if you're a lead, sorry, let me get my thoughts together. So your perceiving function, let's say if you have a perceiving function, right? That is just simply telling you, what are you drawn to when you're perceiving something? Yeah. Simple as that. It's just like, what are you drawn to when you're perceiving something? So you perceive something through your 5 senses. And then you can either have introverted you can either have intuition or sensing, and then you can have those 2 respective attitudes of introverted or extroverted. Right. So either you're perceiving something interesting in an abstract way. When you're perceiving something, you're saying, oh, I like the abstractness of this, or you're perceiving abstract things, and you're an intuitive. If you're perceiving more grounded or how How would you say?
Like you're taking in, like for instance, for intuitives versus sensing types, for intuitives you take the idea of something more than you take the sensory experience or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the
right?
intuitive is like you're almost looking in the abstract domain.
Mm-hmm.
So abstract, it's like abstract versus concrete. Sensing is looking at concrete information or concrete things to perceive, whereas intuition is looking at abstract things to perceive.
Yeah, and usually intuitives try to make generalized connections. Like for instance, the classic intuitive that I like to point to is somebody like Darwin. Like you know what I mean? Like he's just like he's studying animals. I mean, he's still you still have that that he's still taking in sensory information. But
everybody has sensing and intuition, right? You're going to use all your stuff.
It's just which one does your brain lean towards more, or which one does it use by default in some sense? Right.
It's both in some sense, right?
Okay.
Because usually your savior function,
if we're using terminology, we should define it first.
Yeah. I'm using. I like to have I know. I'm like mixing in stuff with Dave's system.
But we should define our own if we.
Yeah. So I guess primary function. I'm going to say your primary function, your leading function, right? What was I going to say? Your leading function.
Yeah.
What was I saying?
It's because you mentioned. Oh shit! I just lost it.
Fuck.
Any in action, baby. There we go. No.
What were we saying? Shoot.
Let's backtrack.
Your lead function. What about your lead function?
Yeah. What are you trying to say? Are you trying to define stuff?
Man.
Are you trying to define stuff right now? What are you trying to do?
I don't remember now. I forgot what we led up to.
It's because I'm trying to make a distinction between intuitives and sensing types, and them saying that, like Darwin, right? Like he.
Oh, Darwin. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Darwin uses intuition first, right? Because he's trying to make abstract connections with the animals in the wild, let's say. So he's studying a bunch of animals and trying and looking at how they all relate to one another. And he's looking at all the abstract features of those animals to see how they actually correlate. And then he comes up with the idea of evolution because he can see that from certain things that he notices in life, he's looking at how these species' subtle changes determine that they've actually evolved from the same line or something along those lines. So this is not saying that a sensate person cannot do this. This is just saying that an intuitive person is doing this much more often than a sensing person is going
effortlessly.
To be doing. Yeah. It's something that it feels natural. Like, that's another thing that I like to ask people when I'm like trying to distinguish between their functions. Like, what do you like to do at the end of the day when you're just completely tired? Like, are you a type of person that just like actually likes to relax by just looking at information or researching topics or something? And it depends on what that means too, right?
Yeah.
I can be more specific because like SI types like to research and things too, but and any type does, but you have to really look at what you're doing to kind of see. And usually when you're in your most tired state, you can kind of see what your primary functions are, because your primary functions, like, you always have energy for those over anything else.
Yeah.
The weak functions are going to take up way more energy. They're just, it's like, it's like little jabs versus like giant haymakers. The weak functions are like giant haymakers to your system.
Yes.
Like, you can only operate in that realm for so long without feeling completely drained.
Yeah, they exhaust you in some ways.
Yeah. Like when I think of like trying to utilize my SI as an ENTP, just thinking about the thought drains me immediately. It's like, I really like when I think about having to organize my files and stuff, or, trying to do things like that, or, memorizing things. I hate memorizing.
You really do.
Yeah.
Look,
those drain me. That drains me.
He is its inferior. And so for me, it's a lot easier. I like to organize things.
But you're a tertiary SI, so it's a little bit easier.
It is.
It's a little bit easier. But still, it's not going to be it's not your wheelhouse.
It's not my wheelhouse. It definitely takes work. Okay. Yeah. Like, I only do it once a week. I'm not like I'm not a maniac out here and like organizing everything every day. Okay. So.
Right.
But anyway.
But also, organization is not completely SI either too. So.
No, that's what I mean. But that's what we mean. None of this is removed from like the general aspect of human, or the general spectrum of human abilities and behavior, right? Like,
this is where it gets hard, because MBTI, you want a system that can they can easily just stereotype certain things and just like these black and white pictures, but it's not that simple, unfortunately.
It's like saying, because like I know people, for instance, like any right now, me and Terence are extroverted intuition, and looking at NIs, anytime I look at a subjective function, I'm like, what? I'm always just a little bit more confused.
Yeah.
But I think because what I've come to realize, I don't know if you already have this epiphany, but or this idea, but I've come to realize recently that the intuitive aspect of that function, I mean the introverted aspect of that function doesn't necessarily mean that they won't appreciate or sometimes lean into certain character traits of, say, their opposite. So, for instance, like the extroverted one. So, like, I've met some introverted intuitive people that understand kind of our eclectic sense of humor in some ways.
Yeah. Like in any sense of humor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but before, I used to have this mindset where it's like, how did they get it? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like they're supposed to have their own internal value framework for like what's funny and what isn't. But they still. That means that they can access this range of things, but they might have more particular. How would you say? It's more nuanced.
It's different for some reason.
Like I've noticed to their shit.
Yeah, I've noticed like I get along definitely very well sense of humor wise with NIs like INTJ or NIFJs, but their humor is definitely different. But it's different in a way that I understand. It's so weird.
It is. It's strange.
It's different in a way that makes sense to me, but it would not be how I approach humor.
Yeah.
It's almost like an intriguing difference.
Yeah, it is.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they probably feel the same way about our humor, humor. Yeah. It's really weird. It's very hard to and I as I was talking to you like earlier in the week one, NI is probably one of the hardest ones for me to define. Still having a lot of trouble defining NI really well. Like almost all the other functions I can define in one word or a couple words pretty easily.
Yeah.
But NI is one of the hardest ones.
Yeah, NIs is definitely weird just because extroverted functions are more easy to read, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because extroverted it's an objective function, basically. An objective meaning that it's visible in reality, right? Like objective functions are made for the whole.
Yeah.
Which you can easily see that, right? Like FE is like harmonizing with the group. You literally see it in real time.
Yeah.
TE is literally like organizing things in a logical structure to make sure everybody has these certain tasks and systems in place, right? Very easy to see.
Yeah.
Extroverted intuition even, I mean, you can kind of see the brainstorming aspect of it in real time a lot of times, right? It's very easy to see.
Or just throwing like the typical way that I've seen it manifest itself is like when I'm friends with NEs, we're riffing machines, baby. We're just shooting ideas out.
Right.
And I've had NI friends look at me and like my NE friends as like, this is entertaining.
Yeah.
And they look at us as like entertaining. We're we're like dancing monkeys for them.
Right. This whole podcast is basically NE. Unhinged.
Unhinged. This one is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we try to do organization every now and then.
But no, this is
But this is really where we shine is I think at least it's easiest to me when we're just going off the cuff.
Yeah, it is.
But of course, then that can get you in trouble a little bit because then the podcast starts to be only for NE people.
Right.
So we try to rein it in a little bit.
I mean, some NIs look at the spectacle of it and they're just wow, look at this train wreck in action. This is entertaining.
But I have noticed that people do get annoyed with NE podcasts in some ways. Like one of the podcasts I love, is like one of my favorite ones, is H3 Podcast. And that's like almost NE unhinged because Ethan Klein is an ENFP.
Yeah.
His wife is an INFJ, but so she kind of reins it in every now and then. I know she kind of keeps him on the horse, but if it was up to him, it would just be NE all over the fucking place and it would be nonstop.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan's also NE too.
Yeah, let's lean into that because that's another discussion I kind of wanted to get into. I wanted to get into creativity amongst different types.
Yeah.
Because I started thinking about like the prototypical like INFP kind of personality recently because one of my best friends, he's an INFP, and well, a lot of my friends actually, but we share some character traits that I thought were interesting, but it's because we share the same secondary and tertiary in our stacks. Yeah, and I always thought that was interesting because like I look at INFPs and I'm like, we look the same, but then there are moments where we diverge, like, and it's almost like it's clear.
In
like,
Dave's framework, that would be called a double observer, I think.
What does that mean?
So it's like your NE and SI in the middle.
Yeah.
You have two observer functions in your middle stack. So it's like I don't really know the implications for it so much, but there are certain ways that manifests where you have two observers in the middle. It's like you're worried about other things less so than people who would be like a double decider. For me, I'm a double decider. So my middle stack is I think it manifests in like it's easier for you to make observations than someone who'd be like a double decider. A double decider might make better decisions, while a double observer might make better observations or something, take in more information or something. I forget exactly the details, but I think Dave's system has something interesting going on with that I haven't fully fleshed out to see if it's true though yet.
That is kind of true. I mean, I will say that I do suffer from analysis paralysis, is what like the coin term out there. So I might be inclined to agree with him on that. But the thing that I do find interesting is that INFPs and INTPs have the same creative mindset or the same creative bone. I mean, I'm not taking away from other stacks, but I just see NESI as it's an interesting creative combo or combination pairing.
Yeah, we talked about this too a few days ago, I think.
Yeah,
and I told you I didn't like analyzing NESI because I already barely going to get a handle on the first two functions.
Yeah.
So,
but I will say,
I might have to tap out a little bit if you go too into it.
I'm just introducing it as a thought. I'm not here to like. Maybe we can divulge or whatever, indulge in it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I will say that I do notice that NE types are more prominent in certain creative circles. Right, like podcasting.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Podcasting lends very well to the NE type.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Something that has like it's easy enough to where you can kind of, because NE types, I think all NE types are perceivers. Let me think about that.
Are they?
Yes. All NE types are perceivers.
Interesting.
Yeah, because there's INFP, there's INTP, there's ENTP, and there's ENFP. All NE, all perceivers.
Yeah.
So, that's right. So I forgot that. I just realized that rule that I didn't remember till now.
Yeah.
If you have a extroverted perceiving function, I believe, then you're always a perceiver in your primary stack, your savior function. So that's in your first two, either your primary or your secondary.
Yeah.
If you have an extroverted perceiving function, you are a perceiver.
Gotcha.
If you have a extroverted judging function in your primary stack, then you are a judger. I guess if you have an introverted perceiving function, then you're a judger as well in your primary stack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Write that one down, kids. That's an important one.
Yeah,
that's
it is.
A good rule of thumb.
And I just realized it too. It's kind of crazy.
But yeah, it's because it's kind of interesting that a lot of podcasts that you gravitate towards is definitely NE. Me too, I guess.
Yeah.
Like NE types,
Yeah, I noticed. I think I've noticed as well. I don't like judge your podcast as much.
Really?
Yeah, because they're just too organized sometimes to me. I like the podcast. I like one of the biggest appeals to me about podcasting is the riffing off the cuff nature to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've noticed with overly people
Structured,
who are when it's too overly structured, I kind of don't get into it as much because then it reminds me of just like normal TV. It's like, why am I watching normal TV when I can just like, for me, podcasts are a way to hang out with somebody.
Yeah.
And I just love the riffing. I love the mistakes. I like it when people fuck up the camera. I like it when all that stuff's there.
Yeah.
I don't like things to be too clean and polished up.
Interesting. That definitely is your NE, like.
Yeah, I think it is. I've always been more like interested in asymmetry and like chaos than I haven't been in order, for sure.
Yeah, I will say this is a recent condition for me.
Really?
Yeah, because like I used to be very. I think because like I was leading TI for most of my life, dipping into NE obviously because it's your two primary functions. You're gonna dip into them whenever I guess it suits you, but I will say that coming into my NE, or developing my NE more and more as I've grown older, I've definitely embraced the chaos. I've definitely embraced this. How would you say?
Spontaneity. Okay.
novelty seeking,
Yeah.
that kind of behavior where it's like, yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
Like embracing that fun. And I noticed that NEs also take on this characteristic of being like I hate to like, we're not the only fun types because SC are also fun types.
Yeah.
But NE and SC are definitely like fun types.
Fun types for sure.
Why?
Yeah. I guess it has to do probably with the novelty seeking aspect.
Yeah.
Because SE is basically like novelty seeking for sensation in many ways, right?
Yeah.
Like all the dudes that I've known that are SE and girls too. I mean, even SE types in their primary stack have always been like some of the best people to party with.
yeah.
Like always, pretty much, because they could just go with the moment, and they'll heighten the experience because they just want to go. They want the ultimate sensory experience.
Yeah.
Like they're the ones that have, all the stuff going on with like, the
parties,
dancing
the raves.
and shit, and like the music's fucking on point. And, it's just like SEs are great, are the best partiers for sure. And then any types, we fit right well into that because we can also just go in the flow. I'm not as good of a partier there as them in the moment, but for NEs, like for me, I used to always like to throw the events, to organize the event and have it, happen, and then just kind of let things flow from there.
Observe.
Yeah, and observe. Yeah,
and still be a part of it.
Still be a part of it. Yeah.
But that's definitely intuitive.
Yeah, but I definitely liked coming up with the ideas of like the weird, cool shit we could do.
Yeah,
like have like a glow in the dark party or something,
right?
Or have certain music playing during this time, or just weird ideas with the parties, and then it would make it interesting.
Yeah, that is very, very funny. That's kind of the same. I struggled with this, but I learned a lot from NEs. A lot of the NEs in my life growing up, I gravitated towards those kind of people. I think because it was also in my stack, so like naturally, you just kind of
it's in your savior function stack.
Yeah, so
using the OTP terminology.
yeah,
that's the Dave superpowers.
Yeah, it's it was kind of interesting because when I started talking, or when I guess when we became friends, it was kind of like. It's interesting how we look so similar in some ways, but then you can clearly tell
there's a clear distinction.
Distinction.
But it's like, but a lot of but we have so many similarities. It's so weird. Yeah, you're saying, it's like we have so many similarities, but also so many distinctions in certain ways too. But it's like, but I understand your mindset.
Yes.
Very well.
Yeah. It's interesting because
we have a lot of the same issues too.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have a little bit more XP, more life XP, but like
sure, but I'm older. That makes sense.
Yeah, but I think it's also because of the inversion of the functions, the TINE, just because like
because I need that extroverted.
You had more experience growing, like you probably had more fun experiences growing up.
Yeah, because I needed that extroverted intuition perceiving feedback.
Yeah.
That was it was such a desire, right? Because that's my primary function. And I needed to get that for information and collection.
Yeah, and then he would tell me stories about him growing up, how he was wilding out.
Yeah.
He had crazy stories.
You wouldn't recognize me.
It's because, and I look at that, I'm like, man, I never had that. I've always like kind of, I dip my toes in and out, but I never, like now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, that seems like I want to have those experiences.
Yeah,
but that's my NE calling, man.
Right. Because you flipped it. You flipped to it now with your early 20s.
Yeah, early 20s. Yeah.
It makes sense, man. And then now, I mean, and we were talking about earlier. I didn't get to address for my.
Sure.
And we were saying there's something to this because I had the same effect, except in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Like I really started to buckle down and really start to hone my introverted side around 21-ish, 22-ish, and that's when I got super serious about physics. And all that, when I actually started to see, okay, I keep getting all this information and taking in all this stuff and all these deep underlying, interpretations of things, but like I'm just collecting, and my memory is already shit. So I'm like, I need to actually start like organizing this information. I need to start really taking seriously, like actually creating decent models for things.
Yeah.
So then I got super heavy in just analyzing my models and my information and trying to structure it in such a way that it's a cohesive picture. So I started getting really caught up in the ambivalence of a lot of things. I kept, after a certain point, I kept reaching like dichotomies. Like, it's like you get to a high enough level, right, where you start to have this weird divergence where it could either go one way or the other, and then you can't really say which one or not.
Yeah.
For a classic example, which this doesn't apply for me because I already am hard one to weigh, but it's like the classic of God, like, can God exist or not exist? And you say maybe or maybe not.
Yeah.
You've gone to such a point where you're like, you can't really say yes or no. Of course, I say no, but that's another story. But yeah, you can always default to yes or no.
Yeah.
But I've been able to give myself a hard stance on that. But that's what I kept reaching, like these dichotomies, these splits at the junctions of my knowledge. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? The only way you're going to be able to resolve this is to actually start to probe. So I guess I've pushed myself. It's like you get to the edge of the cliff, but now the TI is like, I need to start building the bridge to get to the other side.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I'm going to be on the leading edge of knowledge and I want to actually do something useful, I need to actually start building that bridge with my TI. And
because the leap. So I've seen this too. I've had the same thing. I used to, when I was younger, I used to be like, how do people form opinions?
Yeah.
How do people have principles? This is all very interesting. And so
like, there's so much shit to take in. Like, how do you know anything?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then, like you're saying, you build a scaffolding in some way, and then you can kind of going from this conclusion to this conclusion doesn't seem like a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Because everything used to seem that way when I didn't have as much knowledge. Now that I do, and I see where I understand where certain opinions are made or certain people come from, I'm kind of like, okay, all right, it wasn't that big of a leap. You're wrong, but I mean, like, you know what I mean? This is probably the more correct way to do things or interpretation or some ways. But then again, I don't know. NTPs are characterized as like people who, always end a conversation saying, I don't know, though.
Yeah, pretty much. Like a maybe, who knows? Or my buddy who's a NTJ really fucking hates this. It is what it is.
But it's true, man. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm just like, it is what it is. But he's just like, no. NTJs cannot accept that. They have to change. They have to change it. What's the quote? It's like they say the reasonable man adapts the world. The unreasonable man adapts the world to himself. That's like, that's NTJ, the unreasonable man adapting the world to himself. Like, you can try, bro, but good luck. That ain't my battle.
Yeah, try moving the world. I'd rather move myself out of the way. How about that?
But respect to the NTJs, the follow-up to the quote is, all human progress depends on the NTJs.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah, you guys.
Or all human progress depends on the unreasonable man.
Yeah. Good for you. You know what? You get a pat on the back from me.
Yeah.
I'll be your friend. I'll be there telling you, cool things about that.
Yeah.
We'll, I'll ride on the coattails of your trailblazing.
But that's why we just got to develop our judging functions better.
Yeah. That comes with
age. That's the NTP saving grace. Yeah. I think I've gotten pretty decent at that now. Always we could be better for sure. But I feel like I have learned the code.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to always be getting over that initial pain of, moving and doing things in a very a decider fashion, or I guess you should say.
Yeah, obviously NTPs have a hard time doing this. And if you're an INTP or any NTP type or any perceiving type, because I also see this with NFPs, like the NFP struggle is.
Oh, it's real.
It's real. Like, I feel so bad for y'all.
It's real as fuck.
I look at y'all and I'm like, man, where do y'all fit in the social hierarchy? Like, it sucks. Like, I will say that y'all will probably, INFPs, like, I value them tremendously. It's probably why I keep a close group of INFP friends a lot of the time, because their creativity, I think, is like really, really, really interesting. But yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, there's certain types, certain MBTI types that probably don't fit into the hierarchies of society as much as other types. Like we NTPs already have a hard time.
Yeah.
Because
it was better in the past, I feel like, for NTP.
You think so?
It depends, though, because if you're a peasant in the past, you're just fucked either way. There's no hierarchy you can ever get into besides just farming.
Right.
But like, at least if you had a shot, you had at least had a shot back in the days, Well, I can't say it's.
You
It's
can't
always,
say?
It's always hard, right? It's always hard.
It is always
Yeah,
hard.
it's
I think
always
now
hard.
there's a little bit more because the capitalistic framework we're in. It's a little bit the value framework of society is a lot more based on materialism in some sense. So like,
Yeah.
maybe it's easier because you can like NTPs take this materialistic framework and say, what cool things can I make?
Yeah.
Or what's a cool thing I can make? Or what's a cool idea I can like put out there and it can be something.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and I guess the beauty of capitalism is if you really just try hard enough and you really, really have put the effort and the energy, you have the possibility of taking yourself beyond the hierarchy. So,
also, beyond the hierarchy. This is
Yeah.
the thing.
Mm-hmm.
NTPs, this is something that I've come to realize you and I have the same mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where we want to escape the matrix.
Yes, exactly. Everything I do is just to get out. I want freedom. That's all I want.
Yeah.
If I could literally not care about money or anything else, I would just not.
Yeah.
I would do the whole Garrett Lisi on my own island, just fucking sailing all the day. I don't give a damn.
Dude, I used to think I was like an ISFP because I had this like escapist mindset where I was like, I just want to get out of society, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like
Off the grid.
You know, just being homeless in a city. Yeah. I'm off the grid, bro. But yeah, dude, and then when we would have discussions, I'm like, man, you know, like I envision this happening a lot later in life, but only because I've accumulated enough capital to escape the system in some way, you know, like not have to be a slave to the hierarchy in some way.
Right.
But NTs have at least their thinking, the rationality framework or scaffolding to kind of lean on because our ideas are in some ways valued. Our rational ideas are some ways valued more in society than someone that's say creative ideas like an INFP would have.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Creative ideas are a little bit harder to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really feel for y'all.
But INFPs can make it.
They can make it.
They're fine.
But other types, I think. What other types do you see like that are kind of marginalized in some way? I mean, all the introverted ones probably.
Yeah, I think everybody is in their own ways, right? Even though we feel like probably J types have it better than a lot of people. Not always true.
You don't think so?
True. Not always true. No.
Explain.
Let me see.
What, ENFJs?
What's a good way?
I was like,
yeah, I mean, there's many different things, right? Because like ENFJs can be slaves to the people around them.
Yeah.
They have a lot of times they get caught up in no self-identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get caught up in the identity of everyone around them.
True.
And that can be its own pain, its own hell
very
in some
true.
ways,
Yeah.
right? Then they're always just like, what do I even want in life? Like, all I do is just everything for everybody else.
Very true.
INFJs can get it in a similar mindset, right? So everybody has their own issues, right?
I guess
it's
that's
always
true.
an issue for somebody.
Yeah, and I think more recently I've taken on an approach of MBTI where it's like, man, it really is. We all really kind of fit a niche, don't we?
All humans?
Like MBTI, like personalities. Like it's almost like we're all filling in a niche.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Ways.
And I think even weirder is I think phenotypically we're all, you can almost see it on people's faces.
This is an interesting theory that he has here.
I've noticed it anecdotally.
Okay. But it's an observation you've made.
Yes, it's an observation is I've noticed that people, it's actually helped me get faster at typing people. Like people's looks and how they look, like it's an indicator of what their personality type is, strangely enough. I know people would fight me on this, but I've noticed it for sure.
Let's define this a little bit better because I think you're going to get attacked in the comments.
That's fine. I'm ready.
I will say, when you use the word phenotype, do you mean like biologically or also extrinsic aesthetics, like picking extrinsic aesthetics?
Both. But
okay.
really, I'm talking about biology, number one.
Okay.
Because I like to look at things from the most simplest standpoint.
Okay.
But you could say both. But of course, the extrinsic stuff is a little bit can be misleading, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can fall into you just never know, right? Like if an IFP is in the military, they might be very disciplined looking, and
True.
So it's like, yeah, that can get a little misleading.
Gotcha.
But what I'm saying is basically just biologically, people look like their types.
Mm-hmm.
They have this look. Like there is a certain look to certain people where you can a lot of times almost like I'll use the visual identification. And sometimes it's like it'll pop in my mind like, oh, this person kind of looks like X type.
Yeah.
I won't jump to the conclusion yet. Now I've learned from that, but I'll say this person looks like an X.
Mm-hmm.
but then I'll talk to them and see, okay, is it true or not, and let's see what they care about and what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely something interesting there where people look like their types.
Like, what are the archetypes? Like you said, Steve-O is a SE archetype.
Yeah.
Like leading sense.
For sure.
For sure. Like, I think there's multiple phenotypes, though, within types.
Okay.
Because imagine even, like, with different races. Like, it's weird because even, like, people of different races, I'll see another person.
With the same
Yeah, with the same kind of personality that looks like them, but they're just a different race.
Gotcha.
It's, like, weird. I'm like, man, it just shows you even, like, it even crosses over a racial line. It's like,
so
this person looks like that type across the racial
So that makes
border.
you think that there's something more, it is tied to genetics in some way, a more fundamental.
This is why MBTI doesn't change, I think, because you're inherently born with it.
Right.
This is why parents a lot of times, SJ types, I'm looking at you specifically, classically want to raise their kids in a way that, is like them. And then when they get born with, an SJ mother gets born with a fucking, INFP, then they're fucked. And they realize they can't shape them into how they want them to be.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, it doesn't work. It's because I think people are born a certain way. They're born a certain personality type.
Right.
And then the parent cultivates their personality.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And of course, there's nature or nurture will influence that kind of stuff, right?
For sure.
Definitely. But you are born with a type. This is why I
Gotcha.
really like MBTI, because it's a static type that will be reliable across time. So when people say I can shift or change personalities, no, you don't. All you're doing is you shift and change, like you were talking about with the phase transition to your next type. You're just shaping and changing your functions.
Yeah. In your stack.
Yeah. You're just shifting those percentages around to what you're caring about at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that drive, that age transition or something like that happens in your early 20s, that seems to indicate to me that it is somewhat biological in some way. Like and I think we were having this discussion when we were on the way back from the beach. It was kind of like it was like I almost feel like I got tricked by my ego to jump to follow this thing. Remember I was telling you? It kind of convinced me there was something more fundamental about this that seems to be more indicative of it being biological than just a thing that kind of like coincidence.
What do you mean?
Saying?
Can you be a little more specific?
Sorry, I'm being too abstract.
Yeah.
I'm saying like the switch from TINE, or for you the switch from NETI. Like I felt like I rationalized like my thinking in a sense where I was like, yeah, you know what? This does seem like a good idea. Like going, I'm tired of being rigorous and like so rigid. And let me expand my
it came to you like as like you thought it was a conscious thought rather than something that was just was going to happen regardless.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's and then I had a couple other friends that don't even care about MBTI. I've had this happen, and I've asked multiple people now that I've had conversations with saying like, "Hey, in your early 20s, did you feel like you kind of did this? Did you become a little more introverted or something? Like especially if they were extroverted?"
Yeah.
They had an extroverted.
We all like kind of meet in the middle as we get older.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, because I've definitely gotten way more introverted than I was when I was a kid.
It's interesting. I don't know if the community has discussed this as much. Maybe not. I don't know if this is something
I
out
don't
there.
know. I know it's out there.
It's out there,
yeah,
but
because I've read things on it.
Yeah.
Because there's supposed to be even more changes when we get older.
Oh,
apparently
that would be interesting.
Yeah, they say you do it with your tertiary and your inferior as well.
Oh, I'm just going to become obsessed with memories, like just taking pictures and stuff.
Right.
Actually, that's very true. I'm like, I want to buy a good camera. I already have that mindset. Look, you see that?
Right.
Jeez.
So maybe it's going to happen. I can't imagine what SI is going to be like for me. I'm just like, I fucking hate memorization. Like
I'll do anything to not like.
I think by that point you'll be a father and you'll be like, let me take a picture, kids. Let me get this for the memory book.
The thing is, it's so crazy though, because I have such an enormous respect for SI. So I know at some point I'm probably going to, because I respect it so much. I'm like, I wish I could just integrate it into myself somehow. Because when I see people who are SI dominants, really good at it, I'm just like, damn, man. If I just had that skill, I feel like I'd be done.
Oh, dude,
I'd be completed.
I think you're gonna love it, man.
Yeah, I think
you're gonna be that guy that fully leans into it, and
Right.
it's like his whole life is structured. Like,
Right.
I wake up, it's like clockwork, like
Yeah.
the beauty of it. I kind of
Right.
envy that too, the SI shit, where it's like everything is like routine, and because you and I struggle with
Consistent.
routine.
Yes. I can get it once I'm locked in and
Yeah.
I've really put a concerted effort. I can do it for a period of time, for sure.
But that's the thing. It's in our stack, but we're still nonetheless attracted to it. Like we want to. How would you say? What's the word? Like we're fucking. I'm losing my control of language here. But you know what I'm saying?
You're
Like,
saying we're attracted to it.
we're attracted to
Yeah.
it. We want to
appreciate
do it.
it.
We appreciate
Yeah.
it. Yeah. But
Yeah.
we're not masters of it.
Right. But also, for it in your inferior, I kind of don't appreciate it at the same time.
Why?
Because specifically with your inferior functions, you kind of dismiss them. Like for me, an SI doesn't feel as good as an NE. And then for SIs, they feel the exact way for NE. You know, they see us as like flighty, you know, this guy's just all over the place. Like, the fuck is he even thinking?
Not reliable.
Yeah, exactly. Not reliable, just going and doing random shit. But SI feels so rigid sometimes, and so can be immovable many times. SI dominance. But then again, there's a side of you that sees like, oh, this is very useful. If I could integrate this into my personality somehow, that would be very useful.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like just how but that's what I mean. Like by the certain functions in our stacks being complementary. You know what I'm saying? Like in the sense that they almost balance each other out.
That's why I have a little bit of reservations with the OTP Dave superpower system, because I think the way that they're set up in the normal MBTI makes a lot of logical sense, right? They're, like you're saying, there's like this balancing act. Like you need one. If you have one, you need something to balance the other, or else you're just overflowing with that one thing, and then you're an unbalanced human. And we're always trying to seek balance in life, right? Pretty much. I mean, that's what even a relationship is.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy, like how many people I see who don't know anything about personality types or Myers-Briggs or anything.
Yeah.
They landed in relationship types of people who are balancing them out. It's like literally like this stuff, you don't need to study it to do it. It's like textbook shit. You know, it's just like, this is what people do because they are always seeking balance. Balance is like the healthiest state of a human, I think.
Yeah, because I think you recognize your weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I need to have more of that.
Yeah.
Or I need to learn.
And you lean on to another person in some sense to help you with those weaknesses.
Yeah.
And that's what ideally a good partnership would be.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're integrating that into yourself through another person.
Through osmosis, through presence of being. Right. I don't even know.
And then there's a feedback loop, because then you both strengthen each other. It's like you're protecting someone else's weaknesses and they're protecting your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then you're adding to their strengths.
Yeah, I mean, I think one piece of advice, if you're NTP type listening, I will say it was very, very transformative meeting an NTJ in my early 20s and in my youth, I guess in my adolescence, so in high school and then in my early 20s. So yeah, it was get yourself an NTJ friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say? Like, I think
for sure. If you're a perceiver, definitely get some judging friends. Don't be caught up in all perceiver land, and vice versa. If you're a judger, get some perceiving friends. Don't get caught up in judging land.
Yeah. Very true.
You got to balance, man.
Yeah.
People need a balance, and it's just like I've gotten so much out of having judging friends.
Same.
Because I'm just like, damn, they've helped me to actually. It's like they've laid a blueprint for me in so many different ways that I've been able to take with me. And I mean, I still like try to hold on to that. Like I'll even watch like Gary Vee, for example, at ENTJ.
Oh, you
like,
love this guy.
Yeah, he's basically like my roadmap of entrepreneurship. Like if I ever feel stuck or I need like ways to actually start moving in the right direction, that is the go-to for me. Like I always am looking to that guy because he's the ultimate doer. Like he's always doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, how the fuck is he always doing?
Yeah, how?
You know, like him, Gordon Ramsay, like those guys are like some of the like. I'm just like, how?
It's funny. I love those guys
Yeah.
because they're like, they just do. We recently saw this movie Whiplash.
Oh yeah.
I kind of want you to. This is kind of an aside. But,
Yeah. We haven't talked about this actually.
Oh, did we?
No, we didn't.
Oh, we didn't.
We didn't.
But I was like, wait, what conversation? I was like,
No, we
okay.
didn't talk.
But the lead actor, the main guy who's kind of, I'm not trying to spoil too much, but
It's been out forever though.
okay.
man.
But the point of the movie is that there's a very harsh teacher who is treating a student
Whose name is Terence, strangely enough.
funny enough.
spelled exactly like my name.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a student who's young but wants to be one of the greats.
Yeah.
And the teacher kind of puts him in this scenario where it's almost exploitative and emotionally manipulative and like you know what I mean? Like it's a weird dynamic, but
Yeah.
what kind of relationship in MBTI do you think that was?
I think that's an ENTJ ENFP relationship. So ENTJ would be
The teacher and then the ENFP would be the kid.
it's a classic one.
Because I saw him and I was like, bro, that's. You and I looked at
Yeah.
the teacher like, man.
Yep.
We both realized how I don't know. I saw it immediately and I was like, yeah, this guy's an ENTJ.
Yeah.
Like he's
Classic.
he the idea of greatness is more important than like what was important to him than like, you know what I mean? Like the goal was making good music.
Right.
Right.
It didn't matter
all
who
costs.
at all costs.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who filled that little role.
Right.
You were all interchangeable pieces in this like grand scheme of
Right.
making the best music possible. And I
Yeah.
was like, man, what a vision.
Yeah. And very regimented.
Yeah.
And at the cost of like no feelings were involved at all. If you have feelings, you're weak.
Incredible.
Get out. Yeah.
Look, I look at people like that and I'm just like, hats off to you. I'm just like I don't have the energy for that.
It's not good though. It's not good. That's an extreme example too.
Yeah, I mean,
Right. It's in that Gordon Ramsay vein, right?
yeah,
It's very reminiscent of it because
Yeah.
Gordon Ramsay uses the same kind of tactics.
he does.
He uses the tactic of in his kitchen, like,
What the?
you're dog shit. But
Yeah.
the thing is, he justifies it. And the thing is, it's the same kind of thing because I feel myself like looking at that character on Whiplash. I'm like, I get that guy.
I get him too.
Like,
yeah.
I'm like, I understand his ideology. It's like he's almost like an anti-hero in some ways. Like, I'm like, yeah, I can understand it.
And I can almost appreciate, although you and I are not because the movie is about basically the pain mentality.
Yeah. The kid is the embodiment of pain mentality to me. He's an NF type, which NF types, we've talked about this before privately.
Yeah.
NF types are the embodiment of pain mentality,
Yeah.
where they get caught up in the, I have to prove myself and I have to feel the pain to know that I'm progressing.
And he literally has a discussion in the movie that I've heard from my friends that are similar types, saying, where he's talking to this girl, he's like, "I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to break it off. I mean, I'm gonna be for me to be great. You can't be a part of my life, like." And then she's like, "You're saying that I'm gonna ruin your greatness by being a part of your life?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then it's just like,
she's like, you know this. And he's like, yes.
and I'm just like laughing because I'm like, yeah, I've had friends who literally, and I used to kind of, in my early adolescence, I kind of bought into that.
I still kind of buy into that in some ways.
It
Depends on what you got to do. Depends on what you got to do. But the thing is also, it's true and it's not at the same time, right? Like greatness does not mean you have to sacrifice your entire being.
Right.
Right. You can still have a partner and still be great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, also, when you're in that kind of environment like that, where he's in, you're not going to succeed in that kind of environment unless you are fully 100% into that environment.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean you're going to be great necessarily even either.
By the environment, he means like a competitive
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.